Welcome to the case study. We're going to share how Peter Holt's CPA added an extra just under $600,000 in about 6 months from about $60,000 in ad spend. And these were the numbers from about 6 months ago. I actually just talked to his CMO, and the numbers, we're coming up on 12 months of working together. They have spent about just under $110,000 on ads, and they've closed about $911,000 in new revenue, obviously with a lot more awaiting acceptance, okay? And it's not just Peter. We helped Ben Golden close 39 new clients in about 10 months. Ed Lloyd consistently closes about $100,000 a month in new revenue, and it's not just CPAs and enrolled agents. Sam Brotman's an attorney. We helped him add an extra $450,000. Heidi Henderson, she's the CMO over at Engineered Tax Services, which is the #1 specialty tax firm in the US, cost segregation, R&D. We helped her add about $2.5 million to her sales pipeline in about a 12-month period. And not only am I going to walk you through, hey, here's the exact ads, the targeting, but I'm also going to give you 2 free bonuses as a thank you for watching and giving me some of your valuable time. And the first one is 7 steps to profitably advertising to the ultra affluent. We're talking high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals, and our 7-figure swipe file, which is our top 5 highest converting ad scripts backed by millions of dollars in spend, so you can use them for yourself. Now, by the end of the case study, you are going to realize that the best way to scale your firm without burning out is having an acquisition system that can take strangers from cold to sold without your direct involvement, okay? And this is for you if you're ready to attract high value clients, as I like to call them, wealthy clients, because that's our brand. 7 and 8 figure business owners, high income earners, real estate investors, accredited investors, high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals. You're tired of wondering where the next client is going to come from, or worse, you're investing in ads currently, but it's not driving any measurable results. So you're just burning a hole in your pocket. So this is for you if you want a proven system to start producing an ROI. And it works for established service providers. So tax and accounting firms like I showed you, law firms, exit planners, wealth planners, life insurance consultants, luxury real estate brokers, anyone who's solving a major problem for their clients, okay? And just to save us both some time here, here's who it is not for. If you're just looking to start a firm, okay, or you're limited to targeting a local geography, kind of hard to target affluent clients if you're, limited to a rural area, for example. Low ticket products, less than 5K, emergency-based services, so like bail bonds, right? Locksmiths, plumbing, firms that don't provide any real value to their clients, and you don't have any results for your clients yet. Now also, if you're looking for a magic pill, this is not it. It does require some work, okay? So, in case we haven't met, my name is Daniel Schulte. I'm a 4th degree black belt. I have about 10 world titles in martial arts, been to Spain, Italy to compete overseas. Proud father. Fun fact, I'm a middle child of 3. And I also practice what I preach. I drink my own Kool-Aid. Last year, I personally spent just under $90,000 on my own advertising system, which is the same system that we give all of our clients. And this year to date, today's date is April 5th, I've spent about $41,000 on advertising. Now, when Peter first came to us, he had 3 specific problems. First one, if he wasn't working, he was not generating leads, okay? He had a bunch of referral partners, but the only time that they were referring him business is when he would come and do a presentation with them at their dinner seminars. He was partnered with, a lot of financial service firms. So he would come as a guest speaker and he would generate some leads that way. So if he was sick or he took a month off, for example, the leads were not coming in the door. Now, he actually tried paid ads before. He tried Facebook ads with another agency, and he also tried direct mail, okay? Because he had a background of Dan Kennedy, if you have any idea who that is, okay? Direct marketing legend. And unfortunately, when he tried those avenues, the only leads that came in were unqualified, right? They didn't actually have a big enough problem. They weren't a good enough client for Peter to take on. And if they did get every squirrel, even a blind squirrel, finds a nut every once in a while. If they did get one, right, because they were coming from cold advertising, it was a long sales cycle because they were missing that know, like, and trust factor that you get from a referral, okay? So these were the big three problems that Peter had when he came to us. And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly where your dream clients are hiding, how to get them booking into your calendar 24/7, 365 without your direct involvement, and how to get clients to sell themselves as much as possible before showing up to the call, okay? Okay, so here's an example of the ad that we made with Peter. Now, before we actually created some generic ad, what we did is we did an 80-20 of his best clients, the one that pays the most, he likes to work with, but most importantly, the one that he can get the best results for. Now, in Peter's case, he loved working with people who had multiple successful businesses because there's a lot you can do with proactive tax planning when you have different entities that obviously you can, play around with and be creative. So when we did that 80-20, we found that top 20%, we found that, oh, surprise, surprise, they have multiple thriving businesses earning millions of dollars a year. So what we did is we created the advertising collateral specifically around that person. Now, these types of people, all right, these are wealthy, affluent business owners. They have less time than they do money, right? They value their time more than they value their money. So when Peter had originally tried Facebook ads, he had tried stuff like going and doing a webinar, and it didn't work because 7 and 8 figure business owners, right? I actually speak with a lot of them and I ask them the question. They're like, hey, Daniel, I'm thinking about doing a webinar. What do you think? And I say, when's the last time you sat through a webinar? And they can't tell me unless it's for some type of credits, okay? And that's because, again, they value their time more than they value their money. Now, if you're going after high-income W-2 who is more risk-averse, okay, and so they need more nurturing because they're risk-averse and they want to do it themselves, then yeah, 100%, a webinar makes more sense, okay? But for these guys, right, they want to know that you're the guy that can help them and they want to see proof, okay? So our strategy was to show them a case study of a client who we helped just like them, okay? We told them a little bit about the strategies that we did. And because the marketing was geared towards his ideal client and the way, we essentially marketed to them the way that they like to buy instead of trying to shove a square peg into a round hole, we were able to generate a ton of great results, okay? So that was the first piece, is actually making sure to call out their problems and the ideal client in the actual advertising itself. Like, for example, you can see cash flow every year of $4 million. Well, who's going to pay attention to that? Oh, other business owners with cash flows of $4 million, okay? So that was the first step. The second thing is that we wanted to make sure that we were only letting the qualified people through, okay? And just to touch on something real quick, for everybody who thinks, oh, like my ideal clients aren't on Facebook or Instagram. They just are not using it to go out of their way and buy products like they would Google, okay? So you have to educate them and entertain them as opposed to just coming out and being like, hey, buy my shit, okay? So funny enough, right, like Peter in his testimonial, he said, yeah, I got hit with one of your ads on Instagram talking about me. And he said, I think if you know how to target me, you can help target people just like me, which is other businesses doing 8 figures. Which is true. So the second thing is that we want to train the algorithm, okay? We want to condition the algorithm. And basically, here's how it works, all right? We have the creative, which is calling out who our ideal client is, painting the story of other people who we've helped, right? And then that's the first part. The second part is the data that we feed the algorithm. So as you can see, we have 2 questions right here. And the mistake that the other agencies in the past made is they would let anybody fill out the form, okay? Now the problem with that is that Facebook doesn't know the difference between a good lead and a bad lead. So if 95% of the people filling out the form are unqualified, it doesn't know the difference. So it's gonna show this video to more people like the ones you're letting fill out the form. So we have these questions in place And if they don't own a business and they don't do, I believe it's at least $1 million for them. If they don't do at least $1 million, they don't get to go to the next step. So this ad actually gets smarter over time because obviously the more data, right, that we're able to feed back to it, right, the smarter the targeting gets, okay? So after people start booking into the calendar, this is where the magic happens, because while most people are focused on generating leads, we don't just want you to talk to a lead, okay? We want you to talk with someone who's already pre-sold on, yes, I need whatever your service is, okay? I want it from you, right? And some of my objections have already been overcome. So we are currently in what's called a trust recession, okay? And there was a study that Google did, and they found that on average, right, consumers took about 7 hours with a brand before they felt ready to buy. So if you're hopping on a bunch of sales calls like Peter's team was, and you're having super long sales cycles because you're having to explain the same thing over and over and over and over again, okay, then here's what I would recommend to you. When I was younger, about 2 years ago, so not super young, but I walked into my allergy appointment. And after I went through like this little, prick test that they do on the back, the nurse came in and said, cool, the doctor will be in here in about 15 minutes. And she handed me an iPad. Now on the iPad was a video, and the video walked me through why I needed allergy shots, what the process looked like from going to, build up phase to maintenance phase to then not needing it anymore. It went over frequently asked questions. And when the video was over, after about 15 minutes, the doctor walked in right on the dot. And he said, hey, do you have any questions? And I said, no, I don't have any questions except for one. Now, I actually used to teach the doctor's kid martial arts. And so, I felt comfortable asking him this question. But I was like, how many more patients are you able to see simply because of this little iPad video? He said, well, Daniel, in the past, it used to take us about 15 minutes with each client because we'd have to explain the same thing over and over again. And, we could kind of tailor it to that person. And we realized we were saying the same thing over and over and over again. So what we did is we took it and put it into an iPad video. And instead of being 15 minutes per patient, we can now see each patient for only 5 minutes and still get the same result. So he was able to triple his production without changing anything else in the process because he took exactly what he was telling them, right, on every appointment into a video and just had them watch it before he ever came in. So I actually did that with my own business, and we do it with every single one of our clients as well. And for me personally, it took me from about a 10% close rate to about a 32% close rate without changing anything else. So this is what it looks like in action. This is one of the persuasion documents that we put together for Peter, okay? And right here, for example, like you can see a bunch of different videos. Is your accountant working for you or the IRS, right? Here's some tax strategies because that's one of the number one questions that they get, right? Another question is like, hey, that's great, right? But how do I know this is gonna work for me, okay? So one of the things that we have every single client watch before they can hop on a call is this 15-minute presentation. Now, if you remember, rich people value their time more than their money. So we're not gonna have them sit through a 2-hour presentation, okay? But we are going to provide some helpful content before they hop on. So as you can see, it's about 16 minutes, right? Goes through some different strategies, their process, also talks about different case studies and people that they've helped, okay? And so the reason this is so important is because, again, we have to remember we want to build that know, like, and trust process in advance. Now, one of the questions I get is, that's great, Daniel, but like what happens if they don't check their email before they actually hop on the call? Which is a really valid question, okay? And so what's great is that you're actually able to retarget people on the platform that they booked a call from. So if somebody sees an ad on Instagram, like how Peter saw my ad, and he goes and books a call, well, chances are pretty high that he's gonna go back to the platform that he just booked a call from, right? He's gonna go back to Instagram. So what we're able to do is we're able to tell Facebook, hey, I wanna spend a couple of bucks a day, and anybody that booked a call I want to show them ads, right? I want to retarget them. It's kind of like a spider web, right? If you've ever like visited a website and then you start seeing their ads all over the place, you are retargeted, okay? So in this case, right, one of the biggest questions that we get is what strategies can you offer? So you think that if they book a call and then they go back to the platform and then you start showing them different strategies that they can use, that they're not going to consume that content? Of course they are, okay? The second thing is like, dude, how is this real, right? How do I know that you can actually help me? Oh, well, they go back to the platform and they see tons of case studies and client success stories of people working with your firm, okay? And that's exactly how this works, right? We want to get them as pre-sold as possible, okay? Think about it like this, right? If you just generate the lead and then try and sell directly to them, it's like taking a frozen dinner out of the freezer and trying to eat it just like how it is, right? What we're doing is we're creating a conveyor belt, right? Or an automated trust scaling system, as I like to call it, which is kind of like taking that exact same frozen food and then putting it in the oven or at least the microwave before you try and eat it, okay? And really that's an analogy of your client more so than it is you, right? Your firm is the oven, okay? And the prospect is the frozen food, okay? So that's basically what we do, right? We have the ad, go to some kind of educational video, or the ad itself can be an educational video. We filter the lead before letting them book the call. And then between their call, right? Between the time that they book and when they actually hop on the call, we're giving them persuasion content via email. We're having the person call and be like, hey, make sure to watch the video before hopping on. We're retargeting them. And that way they can show up ready to close at like an 8 out of 10 as opposed to, being directly out of the freezer. So if this sounds interesting and you're like, hey, Daniel, this is what I want for my firm, there's an application down below this video. Fill out that application and tell us a little bit about your firm. So that way we can see if you'd be a good fit. Now, to be completely transparent, if you do not qualify, it will not allow you to book a call on the next page. We do that for 2 reasons, okay? One, we practice what we preach. We want to make sure that we're only putting qualified people onto our calendar. And second, look, if you're not a good fit, we don't want to waste your time, okay? And we're only looking for win-win scenarios. So a lot of the questions that we have in place will tell us whether or not you're a good fit. If you are a good fit, it'll give you the opportunity to book a call on the next page, okay? Now, I have a big question from people, which is like, hey, that's all fine and dandy. Like, what does this kind of thing cost, okay? So I actually have a financial modeling sheet here. And I created this because I was dating a girl and her dad came to me one time and was like, hey, I have this real estate investment property. Do you want to go in on it? And I was like, well, what are the numbers like? So he walked me through the numbers and they all looked great. So I asked him, I was like, is this best case scenario or worst case scenario? And he was like, oh, this is best case scenario. So I said, okay, well, if it was worst case scenario, would you still want to do the deal? And he said, absolutely not. So I said, okay, then I absolutely do not want to do the deal. So what I did is I created a financial modeling sheet here that pretty much gives us the worst case scenario, okay? And obviously you're able to like go in and plug in your own numbers to see, what this could look like for you. But let's say that we have an ad spend of about $300 a day, okay? So about $10,000 a month in advertising. And let's say your cost per 1,000 impressions is $100, meaning every time you give Facebook $100, they're gonna show it to 1,000 people, okay? M is actually the Roman numeral for 1,000, I believe, which is why they call it CPM, cost per milli, cost per 1,000 impressions, okay? So throughout the month, right, that means you're gonna get about 100,000 impressions, meaning 100,000 times that your ad has been seen to people on Facebook and Instagram. Now, if 1% of people who see the ad click it, that's going to give you about 1,000 clicks, and your cost per click is going to be about $10, okay? Now, if 15% of the people who click fill out the form and are qualified, you're going to get about 150, I should make that qualified leads, okay? 150 qualified leads at about $66 a pop, okay? Now, if 15% of those leads end up booking into the calendar, okay, you'll have about 23 booked calls, all right? And let's say that only 50% of them show up, okay? So you have, again, half the people are like, for whatever reason, don't want to show up, don't want to do this. That gives you about 11 booked calls for the month, okay? And if your conversion rate, meaning how many people you close, is at 10%, then that means of those 11, you're going to get, right? We're just going to make that 1, all right? So if your price point is $9,800, then essentially you're breaking even on that client. You're actually losing a little bit, right? You're losing $200. Now, most of the tax planners that I know, they get the client in on the front end with tax planning, and then they have back-end services, client accounting services, CFO services, okay? So let's say that you're charging $1,000 a month, and over the next 11 months, this person's gonna be paying you 11 grand, okay? So would you essentially lose $200 up front in a worst case scenario to get back $11,000, right, over the next 11 months? And this is actually not accurate, that total ROI, but I couldn't figure out the formula there, so we're just gonna keep going anyway. So here's the thing, is that on average, accounting clients stay with their firm for 7 years, okay? So you might be losing $200 in this worst case scenario and then going in and you might be making $84,000 over the next 7 years. And that doesn't include if you upsell them, you cross sell them, you have vendor relationships where you get commissions based on the strategies that you employ, right? That's just your revenue right there with your firm, okay? Now, obviously you can go in and you can, play with these different numbers, right? Like, oh, what if, your monthly is 2,000 instead of 1,000, right? Or what if your show rate is 70% as opposed to 50%? Or what if you're closing 30% of people as opposed to going in and only closing, 10% of people, okay? But again, I like to project in the worst case scenario, right? So worst case scenario, are you okay with breaking even on getting a client knowing that they're gonna pay you, $84,000 over the next 7 years based on $1,000 a month retainer? And I think that's actually low. I think it actually might be higher because that's just, the 11 months, not all 12 months of the year. So this is what the financial forecast looks like. And yeah, if you're interested and you want to have a conversation on what this could look like with you want to map out a scaling roadmap of, hey, how can I get from here to here, right? And how can I do it in the most efficient way possible? Then fill out the application down below. And if you stuck with us for this long, I didn't forget about you, okay? You can get your bonuses at go.wealthyclients.com/bonus. Go.wealthyclients.com/bonus. Go ahead and fill out that application below, and we'll talk soon.